Hey y'all, I am excited to conclude my How It Rocked My World series today with this last episode. So I finished up with y'all last time. I told y'all about my second surgery after that first one with the mainstream gynecologist, and then how I switched over to a NAPRO surgeon, and how that was quite a bit different. I compared both post-op reports, so it's like in black and white. It's right there for you to see. And so I just wanted to catch up with y'all with what has happened since then, because that was before I got married, like 6 years ago or 7 years ago or so. Oh, hold on, I've got to let my dog out. Okay, so it does get a little bit complicated, because after I had that surgery with my naprotechnology doctor, I had quite a bit more surgeries after that. And just to explain to you kind of the nature of the disease of endometriosis, it's not like this same disease is the same for everybody. Some people have it more seriously than others, where typically I would say, I have been told by my doctors, it grows back within sometimes it doesn't grow back for people. Sometimes it takes 8 to 10 years. Sometimes it takes 1 to 2 years. And it was starting to look like I was in that 1 to 2 year range where it would just keep growing back. So after that surgery with my NAPRO doctor, full disclosure, I didn't feel a whole lot better at that point. It was pretty disappointing. So I ended up having to go back to have another surgery a year or two later. They took a look in there. I actually didn't have a whole lot of endometriosis there. So that was successful versus that first surgery with the mainstream gynecologist. They did a really good job of removing the endometriosis. None of my surgeries after that really had a whole lot. It just had a little bit of endometriosis and some scar tissue. What I take from that, and why I still praise my naprotechnology doctors, I have had several different naprotechnology doctors. I haven't just had one. They've all been excellent. With a little footnote, which I'll get to later, even with having so many surgeries, that was my choice. Had I stuck with the first doctor and not gone to a naprotechnology doctor, I would have had a hysterectomy. There's no doubt in my mind that that's just what they would have chosen for me, not knowing that there was options. There were other doctors who would take more time to get rid of all the disease and the scar tissue and get to the root of the problem. So, that's a win for me, first of all, if I'm just being real and honest with y'all. Secondly, which is what I'm going to explain to next, there was another underlying issue that took until recently to get resolved. I wouldn't have even had that opportunity, had I had a hysterectomy early on. Over the years, it was like every 2 years I went back and I would have another surgery, which takes me until the end of last year, 2017. All of a sudden, now I was having bad cycles. My pain was still pretty bad. I was trying to change my diet and change some other things, and nothing really helped. December of 2017, so almost a year ago, my period came, and it was the worst pain that I had ever felt in my life. I couldn't move. I was just on the floor. I started to throw up, which that's a symptom a lot of people do have with endometriosis. They have, gastrointestinal problems, nausea, vomiting. That's not something I ever experienced. It was strictly pain and heavy bleeding. But this time the pain was so bad, I started to throw up. And it was from the pain. I don't think it was from the endometriosis. So that was my first trip to the emergency room. They gave me morphine. It took 2 doses of morphine or whatever for the pain to actually get controlled. It was awful. I was so scared. I was just praying I wasn't gonna die. That's how bad the pain was. So they went and took me for an ultrasound in the emergency room. They just found a few fibroids on my uterus. That was it. There was this other cyst that was there, but it was didn't seem like that big of a deal at the time. So they probably basically looked at me like I was crazy, and I went home. They gave me some pain medicine, and I was just like, okay, well, now I feel stupid, but I knew the pain was real. Over the next few months, I ended up going to the emergency room 2 more times. This is taking anti-inflammatories ahead of the time. I also had some narcotics that I was taking at home, and it wouldn't touch the pain. Just to give you an idea of how overnight it just got that bad. In the meantime, this is why I had just recently switched doctors to Dr. Stephen Hilgers in Houston, Texas, which is just a lot closer for me. I live in New Orleans, and I had been going to Omaha, Nebraska for these surgeries, so he was closer. We could drive there. We have a little girl now. This was my first surgery with having a little girl, it was just quite a bit different. So it was really convenient to be close by. I went to see him a few times. He wanted to do his own ultrasound in his office and an MRI at Houston Methodist. So long story short, what he saw from the MRI was that it appeared that I had something called adenomyosis. That's adenomyosis. I like to call it like endometriosis is like evil, more cruel, like horrible twin sister. And so what adenomyosis is, I believe it's kind of like the uterus gets a little bit thicker. It's endometriosis that is within the actual muscle of the uterus. So regular endometriosis just kind of lies on top of the uterus and any other organs. Adenomyosis is in the muscle of the uterus. So the only treatment is to remove the uterus or cut it out, cut some pieces of the uterus out in other circumstances. And that was the little footnote that I was talking about before. I believe that I should have had an MRI much sooner to kind of get a better idea. I don't know that they still would have seen it, but at this point, the adenomyosis formed adenomyomas, which are tumors of adenomyosis inside my uterus, like cysts of adenomyosis, which had formed inside my uterus and stretched my uterus to about twice as big as a normal uterus. I don't know why the emergency room ultrasound, they didn't pick that up, that my uterus was huge. He called it a monster uterus, like Franken uterus, because of these 3 monster cysts. I also had some other stuff going on. But it was great to finally get an idea, and he went on further and he said, here's a situation. You're kind of lucky because it's localized. There's some adenomyosis scattered throughout the uterus, but the stuff that I had was pretty localized to where he gave me an option. He gave Kristen and I, my husband, an option. He said we can either cut off this bottom part of your uterus, these 3 monster cysts, or we can just go ahead and remove the whole uterus. I mean, granted, I am no proponent of like jumping to hysterectomies, but sometimes it is necessary. What I only advocate for is waiting and fighting and working at it before you go to that final, dramatic conclusion. If there's nothing else that you can do after you've tried this, that you've found doctors who really appreciate the gift of our uteri, I don't know what the plural that is, and fight for our fertility, only then, if the pain is unbearable, then of course that we don't have other options. Since I had already been through the ringer and so many surgeries, he gave us that option. He said this is a chance because of course it can grow back. Just like endometriosis, adenomyosis can grow back. So it kind of like, you felt like a Hail Mary. So my husband and I, we discussed it, we prayed about it. We waited a few days, but I wanted to get the surgery scheduled because I could not handle nor afford going to the emergency room every month that I had a period. And we decided to give it a shot. He said I'd still be able to get pregnant after that. It's just crazy to wonder how long that adenomyosis was in my uterus growing and hadn't been found. It was like, okay, so although I had these surgeries, this is something that hadn't been done yet. It gave me so much hope that he looked so much further. He did these other tests that I hadn't had, looked at my history, and really came to us with a great option for hope. He said, there's no wonder you've never gotten pregnant, that my uterus was so toxic with the adenomyosis in there, nothing would have survived. It just wasn't possible. Okay, so we went forward with it. I also had a very wonderful colorectal surgeon, Dr. Haas, at Houston Methodist, that went into the surgery too. Had the surgery. It was very long surgery. I did have to have some of my colon removed at the bottom, which also relieved a lot of my pain, and he made me a nice new little section down there and fixed that up. That's been a lot better. Those two doctors work together a lot, because lots of times the colon is involved in something like this, and they're an awesome team. Very grateful for that. And then he said he removed almost, I think it was like 40% of my uterus, and cut those bad boys out of there. So when I tell y'all I woke up from surgery in the recovery room, well, not the recovery room, by the time I was lucid enough in my room that I was like gonna be staying in, I felt better immediately. Like, I shouldn't say so much I felt better, I felt a difference. I felt the weight lifted, like from inside of me. and I knew something was different, something that was done that was never done before. So much hope. Of course, I try not to jump the gun, you know, I was still recovering. So I had to see how my next cycle went and everything. That surgery was March 29th of 2018 this year. What are we in? The end of August. So I've had like multiple cycles since then, and dramatic pain difference. I'm off the narcotics. Not only am I off the narcotics, but I can manage it with my naproxen. That's been like my anti-inflammatory of choice, and that's it. So before, those two things wouldn't touch it. At first, I actually didn't have like any pain, and now I have a little bit of pain. But like I said, I have pain. I take the anti-inflammatory, the pain goes away. It's amazing how that works. I really can't believe it. In addition to that, y'all, my bleeding dramatically decreased. So before, I was wearing overnight pads for like 2 or 3 days of my cycle and changing them pretty frequently. And now I don't have to use overnight pads at all. I'm still trying to figure out and get used to like the smaller ones. I know, I'm such an old woman that I use pads still, but you know, actually I'm trying to start use tampons now because it's different. I feel like the freedom to do that. Before, I felt like I was so heavy. So anyway, it's just been a weight lifted. With the pain, with the bleeding, I feel like a new woman. And we'll just see. He said afterwards, he's like, when you get pregnant, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's just the way that he talks is just crazy. And now I feel like now that new thing was found and removed, I finally have pain relief. I feel like it's possible, but you know what? I'm just so content. I'm just so hopeful regardless, whether I get pregnant or not. I'm so grateful for the experience, for the knowledge I can now share with you and help other women to avoid the things that I had to experience. I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for the symptom relief. So hopefully I'll get pregnant, but if not, there have been so many other wonderful things in my life and things that have happened through this whole thing. So I'm just grateful. So if this can help somebody you know, please share it with them. I'm gonna continue to do that. Subscribe to me on YouTube. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. You can ask me a question. I'll even come and speak at your church or school. Let's get the word out there to help young women and women of all ages not to have to experience this stuff. I wish y'all well, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.